Okay, I'm not lonely.
Hi, Beth.
You've
I'm so glad that you wanted to get on the call.
I don't know what I was thinking.
It's okay. It is what it is. It's the way of the calls, and hopefully, hello. Hey, Marcus, you're moved in.
Yeah. Sorry, it's been a while. But I am now moved to our new space, and I've got fun bookshelves and stuff like that. But
Congratulations.
thanks.
Hi, Lisa. How are you?
Hello.
Hello. It's every time you get on the screen and like Beatles songs go through my head. So.
Well, I needed something for that wall, and it was either that or Metallica or Led Zeppelin, and I figured the Beatles were probably the least weird, offensive. I don't know.
The least weird. I think you're good. These days, you thought Metallica was like so anti-culture for a really long time, and now it's like, yeah, not nearly as fierce, right?
That's true. That's true. But still,
That's okay. So, not those bands. Just thinking about fun fact. My classmate was the first Mrs. Scott Ian. She named Anthrax. So talk about those anti-culture bands. Marcus has no idea what we're talking about. It's okay,
Nope,
Marcus.
not at all.
No, it's all right. I'm going to put the link in here, and then we're going to do what we did on the last call. Instead of a check-in, we're going to do a check-out, since we're wrapping up the cadence of these calls, and we'll update on that in a minute. So currently there have been 7 ESHIP goal calls, and then the other call is storytelling. So there's 8 calls on a month. But now, as the conversations keep merging, there seems to be a couple of different streams that these calls seem to be going in. So there's a big need for project-focused kind of overlapping, where goal 1 people, goal 5 people, goal 6 people are all on the same call to talk about project-focused stuff, because it's going to take metrics and universal support and connected networks to kind of catalyze and move things along. The other one is for all the newer people that kind of come on these calls. It's a great, hi Pava, a great way to be able to intro. So for those of you, you might have received an email that we're going to do an intro call this Friday. And this intro call is pretty much more of a catch up for everybody who may have been on a call or maybe on one call but not know what's going on the other ones, and it gives the community an opportunity to hear a little bit about the goal history and the ESHIP summit, and answer any questions as we go into the upcoming ESHIP summit, which I'm hoping that you're all signing up for. And then there's also a need for like community building, right? So an opportunity we got on for anybody who was, Lisa was on the call, and Beth on Monday. So we had Jason Weens from the Kauffman Foundation on the call talking about America's New Business Plan. The recording, the edited version of the recording, is on the dashboard. The call lasted about 2 hours. The first hour where Jason was talking was is up on the dashboard. There was a whole extended conversation about the things that the community needs, and how do you help support ecosystem builders who need tools, and so this whole conversation for another hour. And so what really is emerging is the need for more of these extended conversations. And I know Marcus started getting on the community calls when we were having them as we went into this COVID pandemic, just to get together. And I think you would find it helpful. because you got to ask the questions. I don't know, Marcus, I don't want to speak for you. Did you find it helpful?
Yeah, I think so.
Good answer. So anyway, so we're seeing these different streams of the calls emerging, and then there's calls that are like deep dives where we have a speaker like Jason that comes on the call, talks about a topic. So talking to the ESHIP champions, I think what we're seeing is the need for probably 3-4 calls a month that are just different kind of tracks or trajectories. So we'll see what happens. The link, I think I shared the link, is in the chat for the document. We'll have to move some of this stuff down, and we talked a little bit about what communications look like, and because communication is the key to connected networks and community. So maybe kind of talking along that vein of what a community conversation tool looks like. One of the things that we're exploring, so I'll give you a quick snapshot of, let me see if I can share my screen. I'm going to share with you a tool that we're sort of exploring. It's a kumu of some of the people in the community. So it's a tool called Greater Than the Sum, and you will see, can you all see my screen? Yes? I need a verbal because I can't see you.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So this is a community map, and it has pictures of people in the ecosystem. So here's Chad. It talks about the goals that he's interested in, and what sector. So he is in academia and nonprofit, but it also maps to like the people Chad knows. So you can see what the connections are. So the idea is, if you were at the first ESHIP Summit in 2017, you would have seen some of these tools to try to map who's connected to whom. And I don't think it's showing so much, but the idea is to see who's connected and how they're connected and things like that. So this is just an exploration of how you map visibly the connection. So it would be like LinkedIn, except that you could filter by who all is interested and focused on goal 1. And you could filter goal 1 and you can see all the people and who's connected to who. So we'll see whether or not that seems like a tool that's useful, because I think it's really hard to see the constellation, and I think it is constellation, right? It's the constellation of things that kind of go together. So anyway, it's a thought. While I clean up this this document, I want to invite you all to kind of chime in on that and see what you think. So what do you think? And you don't have to love it. It's okay.
Is it a question of what do we think about the tool itself, or the more the broader concept of mapping the network with a kind of unified database of the ecosystem builders?
Yes.
I think. Go for it, Marcus.
Go ahead.
All right. Okay. I obviously, I think the more data, the better, and the more that we can visualize data and whatnot, the better. I think it would be helpful just for acting on, like, it's always great, fun to have tools and whatnot. But especially when they're paid tools or something you're going to be investing a lot into, having a purpose for them, having like we use this for this, is probably an imperative. And along those lines, also the question of like, how can we leverage all of the value that comes out of it so that we actually benefit from having something besides like I go on every once in a while to see who's connected to who. So I think those are some questions, some kind of like meta higher level questions that go along with something like this. In general, I think it's, valuable and helpful to be able to have a map like that. And I think there are ways to do it. The question is, have we figured those out, and are we communicating those to the rest of the network so that we actually benefit from having something like that? The tool itself, I've seen a little bit of. It seems like it does some functionality. As a technologist, I'd want to kind of dig into the depths of it. But, regardless, from at least the basics, it does seem to show connections and whatnot, which is valuable.
Okay, so what I'm hearing from you is a tool would be helpful, tools that would be helpful need to have defined purpose, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Was it Pava who was going to speak?
Yeah, so I mean, I like the use of Kumu here. I think it is cool because, in general, when it comes to like, there are only certain data types that make sense where those relational maps, really work well. And I think like who knows who's working with who is a good take on it. But then there's the question of like who is entering who knows who and like what their relationship is. But I do like the use of Kumu because I think it is a pretty, up-to-date tool. But it kind of, to Marcus's point, one of the things that I've been kind of, I don't know, struggling with is like, what are all of the different tools that ESHIP, is involved in across platforms? Because it's like, there's these Google pages, and then there's these Google Docs, and then there's this wiki that is being used, and then there is Kumu. And so I think we're kind of like, there's a lot of platforms that are going on at once, and I'm having trouble keeping track of like, what am I supposed to like, do I go to the Google page if I'm looking for X, and is all of them being updated, as many as others? So that is, kind of where I'm at with all of the platforms. But I like the use of Kumu because it is a really, well-polished tool. But I think it would help to just in general centralize like, here's one website or a Notion page that says, all right, if you're looking for the agenda, dude, Notion, I'm 100% in on Notion. It is so good. Like a Notion page that's like, all right, if you are looking to get involved in the community, check out this Kumu visualization, and then you can sign up for all the calls here. And if you're looking to learn about ecosystem building, here is the link to the wiki. Because right now it's just, and if there is that, like, my bad, I just don't know about it.
Totally understandable. So the challenge becomes, when Christine and I started with the ESHIP dashboard, and this is probably something that would come up on, say, like Friday's call. So when we were brought on as consultants in support of the community, trying to figure out where it could live that didn't need to live in Kaufman Central. So when things live on the Foundation's platform, there's all kinds of checks and balances that exist, right? There's legal, there's public affairs, there's all of this stuff, and it goes through several channels. We knew that in order to get something out fairly quickly and concisely, we needed a resource that that we could just start. So that's why the ESHIP Goals has an ESHIP Goals at Gmail account. That's why the dashboard lives outside of a Kaufman.org page, right? It's a Google site because then we can update and modify and stuff if we have to do it. And there's a reason why the foundation needs to be able to check all these things, but at the same time, we need it to be a little more agile and a little bit quicker in some of the stuff that moves forward. So that's why it lives in some of those things. So it's a great question, especially because, like Pavi, you've been on a couple of calls. So you kind of, the Slack channel, the Facebook page, those are things that are from the community, of the community, by the community, and we just help support those things. But because we don't explain it often, right? And there's no like little thing that says this is why this exists. But I appreciate the point that you bring up in there needs to be something centralized. But how to how do people come into the network? So that's the second part of what I was curious about today is connecting people within the ESHIP community. And then how do you connect to the ESHIP community? If you're not going through, like, I'm Googling Kaufman, I see this thing called ecosystem building, I stumble onto this, right? It's like Marcus and I meeting at South by South, or what was left of South by Southwest, and saying, hey, so I do this thing called ecosystem building. And he's like, what the heck is ecosystem building? We're trying to do this thing called community building around tech entrepreneurship. And I'm like, well, that's kind of what we do, right? So it's this conversation. So I'm curious to hear from all of you how you got involved in this stuff to begin with. It was like, what was the intro? So Beth, will you share, like, for me, I got an invitation to the 2017 ESHIP Summit. I was the lead organizer for 1 Million Cups in Tulsa. And I thought all the lead organizers got invited, and they didn't. It was about, I don't know, 10 or 12 of us that got invited that were organizers for 1 Million Cups. And so Beth, how did you start?
Hi, everybody. So I got started, I'm in Erie, Pennsylvania, and we had just, it was probably 17. We had just started building a relationship with co-starters and my relationship with Enoch Elwell. And Enoch, I believe, threw my name into the list of folks that needed to be invited. And so glad he did, because certainly when I got there, I found my tribe. So that was great therapy, and I'll be forever grateful to him.
You want to pick the next person to go? So Hassan, what we're doing is kind of telling our entry story into the ESHIP community. Beth, pick the next person to share.
Okay, I'll go with Jessie, the mysterious Jessie.
Hi. So good to see you have a nice pool behind you. Yeah, so I already forgot how I found ESHIP, and I'm not invited. I'm self-invited to join this community. So it's very open.
Were you on the Startup Commons call?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Wow. Amazing. You have better memory than me. Yeah. That's the start of it. Yeah. And I'm looking to make more connections to have this kind of networks to help our partners grow. So that's always, I look to build more meaningful connections. And Kumu, yeah, and I know Kumu from this meeting, and then I also joined some of their sessions, and that's a very great tool. I'm wondering, is there a lively update one of this ESHIP community that we can look at who is connected to whom?
Yeah, right now we're beta testing with a small group for this tool. I mean, it's just to see whether or not there's a need or to Pava's point, there's like a reason for this to exist, right? Or Marcus said, like an intentionality of not just throwing more channels and more avenues, but like, is this useful and how would it be useful? So it's just a test right now. And when we explore whether or not we expand it out or how we expand it out and how do people kind of opt in. And my, the other part of this, so just on an aside, the other part of the need that we're hearing is a lot of the people that live in goal 5, which is the practical metrics and methods, they always want to survey people, but then people don't respond to surveys. And it's really hard because you want to get a cross section and get more information, but how do you survey people except making them sit down and survey people. I was at a conference once where we basically got locked in a room until you completed this 20-minute survey. So not as much fun. But if you don't collect those metrics, you can't move that data forward. So we thought that if we had a tool like this one, where you could actually, let's say all the data geeks got in there, probably don't get excited. All the data geeks got in there and said, these are some of the questions that I want to ask a community of ecosystem builders, right? And you put them into a pool, and every month we pulled out 3. And we shot it out to everybody on the network and said, here are the 3 questions for the month, answer them. And so your questions could randomly get answered. That feeds that. And then because you've got skin in the game, right? Because I have a survey question that I need answered, I'm also willing to answer other people's survey questions because I get it, right? And so it's a relational thing. It's not a transactional thing. What happens, I think, right now is surveys become transactional. We need your data. So go answer these. And you're like, I'm just giving away my data, what, you know? So I think that's the challenge. And when you utilize a tool where we're all part of the network, then you're more apt to contribute the same way you would want to get information out. So trying to build those relationships are some of what we're trying to do. If nothing else comes out of all of this ESHIP stuff, the fact that we've all made more friends and we all have more connections, that's a big win. So it's unfortunately not a metric that we can measure to say, hey, there's value in this, because we can't tell you how many jobs are created. We can't tell you how many people launch to become entrepreneurs. But what if we could? What if we could say, these are the people that we got engaged into this network. This is how we grew. These are projects that emerged because people got together on these calls. So anyway, it's a long drawn out. And so I'm still curious to hear how other people got engaged. So can I call on Hassan, because I kind of sort of know how you got involved in the ESHIP community, but what was your intro into ESHIP?
So I think it was, if I recall, my official entry was via Christopher Gergen with Forward Cities. So I had served on a local council for Forward Cities back in 2014 to 2016 in Detroit, and it stayed in touch with Christopher. And when ESHIP, the first ESHIP, came about in 2017, I received an email from Christopher with info on it, and I registered and attended the first ESHIP.
Okay, go ahead and pick somebody.
Marcus, have you gone yet?
I've not, though I guess Celia had mentioned kind of how I got involved. But yeah, I was at a, I guess, startup-y event, found Celia. We talked about basically the love of ecosystem building, of what now I know as ecosystem building. And she invited me in, and I dove in head first. And then I disappeared for a couple months, and now I'm back. And Pava, how did you get involved?
So I actually got involved through the process of investigating resource databases. So was really interested in like why there didn't exist a resource database for all of the resources for entrepreneurs in Baltimore's ecosystem. And that led me down a rabbit hole of like learning everything wrong with resource databases everywhere. And through that process of investigating those and trying to figure out, a way to solve some of the problems that we see with it, I, found the ESHIP community. And I, really, really wanted to go to the last one, but it was like during my my graduation. It was like the same day, and so I couldn't. But through my work, with my company now, and how we work kind of mapping ecosystems, I've gotten more and more involved. And it is just really cool, to Marcus's point, to like find other people who nerd out about ecosystem building, because most people just look at me like I'm crazy and be like, okay, dude, that sounds cool. So Yeah, mostly through the process.
Excellent. Lisa.
Lisa.
Right.
So I guess it was, so I live in Albuquerque, and I've been doing a lot of virtual networking events because that's all there is here. And I guess it was Eric Renz Whitmore he posted in one of the networking groups, he posted a call that Cecilia did a couple of months ago now, I guess. And it was just, like this random thing that he posted in the chat. And I was like, oh, that looks really interesting. Because I'm an entrepreneur, and all of my clients are entrepreneurs. And I've always been very passionate about helping them to positively impact their economies and their communities. So it was really great to find this much larger resource, I guess, a much larger group of people who are also passionate about helping people build businesses that positively impact their communities and their economies. And this has just, been really cool, because in the entire 12 plus years I've been running my company, I had no idea you guys were here.
Okay, we haven't been around that long. That's fine. Thank you, Lisa. So as you got connected to this community, what was hard and what was difficult about connecting? Because I think that our problems aren't unique, right? Other people are going to experience them. So knowing how people connect or how people don't connect is really helpful.
I guess one thing that I've kind of found challenging is that, like, obviously I run a company that works in this space. And I'm always super worried about, like, coming across that, like, I'm trying to connect with people as like a sales pitch, and it really worries me. And so a lot of the times I just don't, or I don't talk about the work that we do because I don't want it to sound sales pitchy. And I think that's kind of limited, like, who I've connected with, because I don't want them to think I'm just using it transactionally, right? Like, yes, we do sell into ecosystems, but if I'm talking to you about your ecosystem, it's probably because I want to learn something about it, not because I'm trying to sell you, what we build. And so that's been a challenge for me, like, what is and is not appropriate to mention about my work, what is and is not appropriate to reach out to someone for XYZ. So that's been a challenge that I've run into.
No, I totally get what you're saying, Pava. I experienced that a lot as well. And I think I have not really connected because of that. And also, I think too, it's a little bit feeling like you're new. What you don't want to come in like just charging in and be like, oh, hey, this is me, whatever. Because everybody loves that person who just wants to come in and talk about everything that they know and not try to learn and get up to speed. So I think that's part of it too, is just trying to find that balance, for lack of a better term, between, making connections, but not trying to come across as though, hey, guess what? I'm finally here. I'm who you've been looking for.
Kind of along those lines. Well, so like, first off, yeah, I'm young, and I plugged in here, and I have all these dreams and visions, and then I find all these other people already doing it. And so, and that's something even moving into a new location, being in Philly, and plugging into the ecosystem. For the first time, I've kind of come to the, like, let me see what everyone else is doing and try to see how I can support them as much as possible before I, like, push myself out there. I think that's a really important approach to the space as a whole. But I think the primary, like, kind of maybe not primary. It's a mix of things for like what is the roadblock for connecting in to a community like this, which is we all do the same thing to some degree, and maybe we have all have different approaches or something. But I think a lot of individuals here probably have thought of the few different facets that go into ecosystem building, and if they're not doing it right then they have some plan or intention to do it in the future. And so you have a bunch of people who have their the same approach to doing something in their own little bubble, and kind of like Pavo was saying, you don't want to like feel like you're sales pitching, you don't want to feel like you're getting in the way of other people or trying to like take over or something like that. But then there's also this kind of recognition that by us all doing it ourselves in different places, we can only go so far. And the reason why, to me, the reason why, ecosystem builders haven't taken over the world yet is because we're a bunch of people in our own little isolated networks. And as much as ESHIP is a great place to interact with other people who have the same vision and see how we can like make the space a real, I guess, a real career, as it were. There's this kind of, to me, this reality of like, it's not organized in such a way that we really leverage what each other have done. Because I don't think any of us want to be leeches, but we also haven't, pushed ourselves to the point where we are driving stuff because we don't want to be that jerk who's trying to, push everything forward and take control when, it's not our thing. And so we're on this awkward space where, because we're not organized under like the same organization and operating with the same purpose and get paid out in the same value that everyone else does, it kind of stalemates us. And there's no means for sharing and collaborating that doesn't feel like this awkward in between of like, I give something, you give something, or whatever else. And of course, those who know me are going to say, well, where is this going? And my response is open source. But I think there's something to be said for, because it hasn't been organized in a structured way that has protections and has like a driving kind of board and a way to plug in a way that there's a return to you. Maybe there's this awkward holdback of, well, how much do I get plugged in without being the jerk or being the leech? And so that sorry, I don't know if that's just me loggerying, but that's definitely kind of what I've seen as I've plugged in, being here for a couple months. That being said, it's still great because it's a bunch of people who think the same way and have that kind of tribe mentality. But I think there's a lot more value that could be driven out of it if there was organization around kind of a centralized value return or shared set of resources that we can all pull from and contribute to in that sense.
So I saw Lisa nodding a lot. So Lisa, what are you thinking?
No, I was just agreeing with Marcus. I think that, it is that whole idea, we don't want to seem like leeches and we don't want to seem like know-it-alls, especially when we're new to the community, even if we're not new to what we do. And maybe that's just, part of that network building that needs to be done is, for those of us who aren't, the big names in ESHIP, to just, try to, just trying to get plugged in, but the question is always how, and I think that's where we keep going around and around and around, is how do we do that? And I mean, I wish I had an answer. I built my entire network from the ground up by myself. So obviously that's not an answer that's valuable. in building a larger network, you know, outside of one place and one person and one, you know, one company, one community, you know, any of that. But on the other hand, you know, even you just being smaller hubs, I guess, you know, maybe if we think of ourselves as smaller hubs with the networks that we do have, might help us to get plugged into the larger networks, just not thinking that I can't think of the word. We're new, but we're not clueless, I guess, you know.
Right? No, absolutely not. I mean, that's the invitation, right? To share the knowledge that you have. Yeah. I think what's been helpful on these calls is because it's a smaller group, because we're seeing each other's faces and getting to know each other's names. You know, when we do check-ins, I know some people say it's like a little too much hugging. And it's a little woo-woo because we're trying to get to know each other. But the value in getting to know each other is that you build the trust and the relationship so that you can feel open to saying there is no wrong answer. It may not be the right context. It may be the wrong situation. It's not necessarily that what you bring to this conversation isn't valuable. And I think that that's the beauty that I found in this network in particular. What I found at 1 Million Cups is the first time when I was working on my entrepreneurial concept that people said, that's a great idea, and instead of that's a good idea, but, right? So that it's an additive. So I think a lot about improv, like bring a brick, don't build a wall, add to something, don't take away from something. It's all of you that come into the community bring something additive, right? And to find out where that's most effective, or find out who needs to hear what you have to say, that's the navigating too. And sometimes it's, and I hear, before I go on, I'm curious to hear from Beth and Hassan also, because you've been a part of this community for as long as I've been a part of this community, and we have people that are new, but it's still hard to navigate. So what do you think about this connecting? What are the challenges that you experienced, and what are the things that helped you?
I can go. I think that the biggest challenge is time. I think as much as you can try to stay engaged and connected and try to participate, I think the biggest value is the people that you meet and what the shared learnings that happen on the calls. So I think and as much as you can try to stay connected, I know sometimes our schedules don't allow that, and I think sometimes we pop in and out where we may not be part of a call for a while, and then we come back in and we're trying to catch up and figure out where we fit in the conversation and where the conversation is at. I think even with all of that, as much as you can try to stay connected, I think that's probably the most valuable piece, because it's just, I mean, it comes down to consistency. Because if over time, I've been part of this network now for 3 years. And really, it feels like just yesterday, but Beth has been part of this network since the beginning. And I think the people that I've met, the things that I've learned, I think there's so much value in that. And I think there's no way to really I try to think about this all the time. Like, how do you, other than putting together the map of connections, how do you really show the impact of these calls and the impact that they've had on your life individually and on the community as a whole.
So when I'm hearing our newer friends talk about this, it's interesting, and I would be heartbroken if I knew that someone had actually tapped into the network and didn't get welcoming response, etc. So I think for me, when I entered into to my first summit, it was I've become very good at understanding that in order to grow, I need to come out of my comfort zone. So fake it till you make it kind of mindset where I would approach people and knowing that every single person that I connected with, I'm going to learn something from them, whether they've been part of ESHIP since the beginning or whether they're brand new. And it's awesome. And I agree with Hassan. I mean, we go back and forth of being super engaged and not being able to take the time to do it because this is all volunteer work. But if there are suggestions as to how we can be more welcoming as a community, that would be really helpful. One of the ideas that I've had and not talked about much is that because I think from a capacity perspective, we may not be able to pull it off, but an ambassador type network that could act as maybe regional ambassadors to try to recruit new engagement, as well as just welcome new people and give them the ask me anything experience and see how we could grow it that way.
I think that's a great observation, Beth, and I think that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to talk about these intro to ESHIP community calls, and it's also a good opportunity to see what the overlaps are and the interdependencies. Probably not so much for goal project purposes, but just as community awareness stuff. And then if you wanted to get deeper into how do we collaborate between goal projects, that's also where the deep dive conversation is. Jesse, I'm curious to hear from you what the challenges are in navigating a community like this, or what would be helpful to you.
For example, I am newer here, so I don't know any one of you except Celia. Yeah. So what's the better way to know the community members, the participants? What's a quicker way to do that?
Yeah, what is the quicker way to do that? I don't know, except getting on calls, and then we go back to what Hassan said. It's the time, right? Because your time is valuable. The time is the limited thing you have, and then trying to find enough time and opportunities. And how do you understand which opportunities are the ones that you should embrace and which ones aren't going to be? I mean, yeah. Not for nothing, we don't want anything to be a waste of your time, but at the same time, it may not be what you need, right? So that's where the invitation has to be very exact to say, this would be beneficial for, and tell you why. So, so I think that's what we try to do with, say, like the invitation for the ESHIP Summit. Hopefully, everybody has gotten the email if you're signed up. If you're not signed up for the newsletters, then at the bottom of this page, which is about the ESHIP Summit, there is a place where you can keep abreast and get the Kaufman newsletters, right, to stay in the loop. But we wanted to be very intentional, and you'll see as you scroll down, there is a who should attend the ESHIP Summit, because we want this event to be of value. And the question is, well, if I go, am I going to get the things that I want? It's not a summit where we have lots of panels. It's not a summit where we have lots of speakers. We have very short speakers, what we call fire starters. And the whole idea of a fire starter is to introduce a topic for 5, 10, 15 minutes and get you thinking about something. And then we break off into small groups and we discuss it. So most of the things that happen are in smaller group engagements like this. Most of the communication is done with each other, right? There will be an opportunity for in looking into resources and such. And I know some of the people on this call have submitted in the call to presentations, because it's sourced through the community, right? The Kauffman Foundation doesn't have all the answers. And unfortunately, there is no room, the answer room. I still haven't found the checkbook yet either. So, but the idea is that the knowledge lives within all of you, right? And that's how we get better together. So, so to that end, and I want to leave a couple of minutes for questions, and then I know that Beth and Lisa and Hassan have done this, but I'm going to invite all of you to do it over again if you've done it before. As a checkout today, I'm going to ask you to tell us your name, your community, and complete the sentence. I'm an ecosystem builder because. So think about that. And you can change your answer if we've recorded you doing this. We're going to keep an edited content. I don't know how we're going to use it, but it's really just very informative to get that. So I will type that in. I'm going to put everyone's name alphabetically. You get to have a do-over if you didn't like what you said last time, or do it in addition. But we'll do that in about 5 or 10 minutes.
Quick question. You mentioned that there is a meeting, their call on Friday. What is that about specifically?
That's a great question. So we started out knowing that some people are fairly new to the community and just have been on 1 or 2 calls, or not even been on a call. We also know that there are people who have been engaged in calls and haven't been around for a while. This call has been, the invitation has gone out to the people that are on the Slack channel and people that have registered for a call. We will have another call at the end of the month where we'll expand it a little bit further for people that are on the Facebook page who may never have been involved. So the first call is probably people that are more in the work, in the weeds or in the trenches, as far as the ESHIP goals are concerned. You have some notion of what the 7 goals are. You have some notion that there is a community out there. Some of them are working on projects, some aren't. So it's basically, we labeled it as an introduction to the ESHIP goals community. Maybe a little bit of history about, so similar to what Lisa and Jesse heard me share on the Startup Commons call. Where did this start from, right? So if you don't know the history of ESHIP, the ESHIP goals community, and it's basically an AMA, so ask me anything. If you have a hot burning question you've always wanted to ask, we never had time to talk about on a call, ask us anything, right? So that we're able to make sure that people have a more knowledge and notion of the work that's being done around the community. It's being led by Dia, Eric, and Tiffany, who are all ESHIP champions. Not everybody has been around for 3 or 4 years like Eric has. Some people are newer, but then they can share about their experiences. They can, so we really wanted to leave it open because we don't know, but the audience that's been invited is, if you've registered for an ESHIP monthly meetup call, or you're part of the Slack community, you will have received that invitation. So does that answer the question?
Yeah, and I just went back through the Slack and I found the message. And
okay.
So thank you for explaining it though.
Okay, great. Are there any other questions or comments? Yes, Hassan.
Yeah, the only other thing I would share with the group is that, I mean, initially when you come into a community like this, there's the I guess, imposter syndrome, wondering whether or not you should actually be here, or, you know, are you with the right group of people? I think if anything, if you're able, and maybe you have, if you can join as many of the calls, because there may be one call that you initially think that you fit in with, but then just by joining other calls, you may feel that, okay, this other group and the conversations that are happening on this other call are more aligned with what you're at and what you're interested in. So I think just jumping on as many of the calls as possible to either, you know, get on all those calls all the time, or just to find the one that you feel you're most aligned with.
Yeah, and knowing that the cadence of these calls will be changing after the next ESHIP summit, so they will not follow exactly the same way that they have been. And I think,
Are you basically saying that there won't be goal calls because they're not going to be focused around goals anymore, or because you mentioned cross-pollination and whatnot?
Yeah, so I think that I don't know, because it's still evolving. So ESHIP champions are kind of convening and talking about what they're seeing, but so far it seems like there's kind of that introductory call thing, so that anybody who's new or has a question or just wants to get to know people in the community a little bit better and understand some of the work that's being done, because not everybody is on all the calls, right? Some people are on more calls, and so it's more of an introduction. The other one is that there are several people that are working on specific projects. There's the 5X project that's working on definitions. There's a storytelling group that works on storytelling stuff there, and storytelling isn't actually a goal, right? Storytelling was already defined as one of those things that kind of infuses through all of the goals, and it was kind of our thread through a lot of them. And then you've got so there are things like we talked about what it would be if we were to put together a public service announcement campaign. So Beth is big on, let's get the message out there why ecosystem building is important. So we realized, talking on the Goal 7 call about sustainable work, that there actually needs to be some metrics around it, because people are always looking for data, and that data is the proof that this thing is valid, right? So you need people that are involved in metrics to work with people that are involved in the marketing of a campaign and storytelling around those things. And then you need this connected networks to be able to get the message out and amplify it. So it's cross-goal collaboration that needs to be to catalyze things to move forward. There's also a need and a desire for deep dive learning. So when you get those inclusion experts that talk about what it is to host virtual meetings and how you can do that on an inclusive basis, or like Jason talking about America's New Business Plan, which is how policymakers can support small business and entrepreneurship, like getting the thought leaders and the content experts to be able to share about the tools that they're working on, or a program or policy or something like that, like deep dive learning, or so there seems to be a call and a need for that. I don't know that there will be a specific inclusive goal call or a connected network call. I don't know that it will always be centralized as these 7 pillars. Does that make sense? So hopefully I explained it well. Are there any questions on that?
That was good.
Okay.
Just want some more clarity on that. That was good.
Okay. Any other questions before I start recording all of you? So let's see, Lisa, and then Marcus, and Paula. I'm going to do this in alphabetical order. All right. And Beth, because you've done this before, I need to put it on speaker view. Okay. Beth, since you've done it before, you get to lead off so that you can show everybody how to do it. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. And?
Hi, I'm Beth Zimmer. I'm in Erie, Pennsylvania. I am an ecosystem builder because for now, this is the best place for me to utilize my skills and talents to help entrepreneurs solve problems and grow and scale efficiently.
Hello, everyone. I'm Hassan Bazi. I'm in Detroit, Michigan, and I'm an ecosystem builder because community is the foundation of everything.
Hi, I'm Jessie. I am an ecosystem builder, or strive to be. I have always involved in industry ecosystems. From several years ago, involved in a data standard, and it's an IEEE data standard. And now I'm co-chairing learning technologies, learning engineering community called ICO. So when we are looking at industry advance in digital transformation or innovation, we look at a lot of startups, but startups always have the most energy to bring in innovation or the boldness. And at that farm, it's not like you can build a course and teach industry or teach enterprise executives how to do it. It's like I like someone from PRC say expert is in the community. So facilitate the knowledge exchange in the network collaboration is the answer. So looking into startup ecosystem is actually my recent moves. I'm getting to know how to leverage the energy from startup ecosystems. So my answer is a little bit long, but that's what I think of. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lisa McGarry. I live in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I'm an ecosystem builder because, well, it's incredibly rewarding to help somebody take their dream and turn it into something that, you know, grows the economy, grows the community, creates jobs, and to do that over and over again is just, it's a very interesting way to make a living, I suppose, and also to participate in the economy and the community.
Howdy, I'm Marcus Smith. I'm from Philly, Pennsylvania, and I am a co-founder in Axon Collective and a co-founder in Astronomic Network. And I am an ecosystem builder because I love helping people do what they love. And I believe that entrepreneurial collaboration is what will bring innovative solutions to the future.
Hi, my name is Pavel Lepere, and I'm an ecosystem builder out of Baltimore, Maryland. And I'm an ecosystem builder because I believe that entrepreneurship is truly the catalyst that we need for real economic development, but only if everybody who wants to become an entrepreneur has equal access to the resources that they need to do so. And so I'm determined to help make that happen.
Excellent. Thank you all. Wow, that was great. Okay. So I'll go back to my gallery view so I can see you all. And let's see. So a couple of things about the ESHIP Summit that you may or may not know. Because ecosystem building is a team sport, you cannot do it by yourself, no matter how much you try. There is a group discount. If you look under the website for the ecosystem builders for the ESHIP Summit, under the FAQs, there is a group discount. Find 2 friends or more and fill in the form with the names and the emails of those friends. And you will get a code that will discount you for the cost of the summit. So the cost of the summit is $95 up through the beginning of September. If you sign up for the code, and let's say you were originally going to pay $95 for each of you, with that code, I think it's 25% off. So it'll cost you $71. So you could actually bring 4 people for the price that you would have paid for 3, because it's a team sport and you should have friends. So there's that. As always, we don't want cost to be a barrier, and we are offering scholarships. So if you're interested or know somebody who is in a scholarship to attend the ESHIP Summit, then that's also available and listed in the link. There will be 3 different days for ESHIP this year. They're not all together. The 15th is probably more about ecosystem building 101. This is the introduction. This is what ecosystem building is. This is why it matters, kind of thing. Because this opportunity to go virtual will give us probably the largest reach we've ever had. We've always been constrained by how many people fit into a ballroom of a hotel or a convention center. This time we go wide, and so because the audience will be wider, if there is somebody who you've always wanted to include or has always asked you, the heck do you mean by ecosystem building? This is a really good time to share. Some of the stuff will be live streamed, so there are things that you will be able to view without necessarily attending the ESHIP Summit. Why you should attend is because of the interactive stuff. The reason is because we want to hear your voices. We need to hear your input. We want to be able to share your ideas. So that's what the attending the ESHIP Summit means, right? The second day is a little bit more of tools. That's where those presentations that people submitted, you'll hear about case studies. You'll hear how communities are working or the tools that are out there for ecosystem builders. If you have a tool and you have not submitted, or you have a story to tell and you have not submitted, if you need a day or so to get that in, let me know and we can try to open that up a little bit. It's not for every, we understand that some people may not have gotten the message or had the time to work on it yet, but it's a really short window and there's a lot of submissions. So I'm going to tell you, there are a lot of submissions and very few slots, but don't not share, okay? Then there is an event on the 29th. The 29th is separated for a reason. There are some of you who are very deep in the trenches, rolled up your sleeves in building this professional practice and field of ecosystem building. It's not for necessarily, it's not that we would exclude anyone, but we understand that there's a smaller audience of people that want to think about the certifications, the structures, the school of ecosystem building, and what does that actually look like? And if you were a profession like project management or nursing, and you wanted accreditation, certification, tools and resources, and how do you build that United Nations constellation of ecosystem building, what does that look like? And if you would like to get involved, we would love to have you engaged on the 29th. So that's why it's separated out in those ways. Are there any questions? No. So we'll
I've got to hop off for another call, but it was great seeing everybody.
Great, thank you.
As well. It's great to see you all as well.
All right, everybody have a great day. We'll see you soon.
Adios.
Thank you.